All right, recap of day 14 of 50, streaming every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We talked about a senior right-handed pitcher, PO, only at the 80 to 82 mark, probably at that D3 range, because really we're a stock right-handed pitcher. As far as really for those 2027s in general, the next 1 to maybe 6 or 7 or 8 months, this is going to be the best areas for recruiting for your abilities. One area, or really mindset, is we want to shoot for these stars, just like Kanye West said in one of his hometown songs, and if you fall, you land on the clouds. That could be minor league baseball, that could be D1 baseball, but if our goal is just to play JUCO, what are we falling down to? Just becoming a varsity starter? That's not a good mindset. In my opinion, when we talk about nutrition, which was an awesome conversation that we had today, we talked about the day-to-day, not necessarily the month-to-month or week-to-week, because ideally, just like baseball, we need to win every single at-bat, we need to win every single pitch. And very similarly, during our day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we need to make sure that we follow, a protein, a carb, and a color for every single plate. If we have to increase that carb or that calorie or that protein intake, we can increase the number of meals that we're having throughout the day. Again, we talked about carbs giving us that energy. The night before maybe a good showcase or a game or a tournament, we want a carbo load, or we talked about the banana right before the game. That was a superstition that I had. I also talked about how bananas were good for your brain. So I always like to trick myself that brain food was always good right before a game, so that way I swung at the right pitches. Simple carbs before, 1 gram of protein per pound of basically body weight. So I weigh around 200 pounds. 200 grams of protein is what I'm going to always be shooting for, so that way I can build muscle. If you're doing a 60-gram protein shake for breakfast, I would want to incorporate some level of carb as well, because that's going to definitely help with the overall performance throughout the day. Also, we talked about a post-grad summer season. That's where I would prefer that you play in a summer collegiate league. We also talked about short form social media and long form, guys. Short form, we all know, it's kind of just brain rot content, so that's why if you made it this far in this video, make sure to hit me up on YouTube so you can join into the next live and get notified. Again, what I talked about for high school juniors, 2027 grads, the next 1 to 8 months, this is the biggest leverage to be able to commit to a specific college that your son wants to play at, not just a college. We also talked about the difference between perfect game, tournaments and showcases. Showcases spend a lot of money, obviously, just to get the metrics. The tournaments is really where the team is trying to win, and there's not necessarily going to be a perfect game profile or anything like that, but as far as 2 tournaments to really be looking out for, the WWBA in East Cobb and the WWBA in Jupiter are huge ones. And we also talked about Jordan's specific situation. Jordan's mom, Isabel, didn't necessarily know any of the metrics, and this is where without those, I was not really able to guide them in the best capacity. So if you know those metrics, it's definitely going to be helpful. And we really talk about building that mental confidence. If your son is sitting at a plate full of food and he says, "Mommy, I'm hungry," and you come over here and spoon feed him, what is that really teaching him? So that's really going to those private hitting lessons every single day, or posting on his own behalf on social media, or doing anything for him. We need to make sure that he understands he needs to feed himself if he's hungry, and especially with that mental awareness and that confidence. These are the things where, especially on the social media side, we don't want to create content, we want to document the journey. And then last but not least, we really talk about that structure and that structural guidance. If at your last job you receive a huge pile of papers throughout, maybe your first day of work, it gets very overwhelming. So inside my academy, one thing that we do in our 14-day challenge is really simplify everything and just take micro steps in the right direction. And over a long period of time, that's where we're able to see that growth.